Welcome to the Long Island Retro Gaming Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Staub, and we have yet another amazing guest with us today. Today we're going to be talking about free play. We're going to be talking about racing games. Maybe we'll talk about some other weird stuff going on at the Long Island Retro Gaming Expo, because we have with us today our free play coordinator, George Smith, an all-around great guy, and a racing game specialist. So, George, welcome.
Oh, thank you, Mike, for having me today.
Yeah, happy to have you. Happy to talk about all this stuff. So, let's introduce you to the folks out there listening. Many of you probably already might know George. You might have seen him running around the Long Island Retro Gaming Expo, making sure everything is running in tip-top shape. He does an amazing job with the free play side of things, and an even more amazing job with figuring out how to inject the checkered flag and racing games into the expo at large. Sorry if you hear a dog barking in the background. There's a dog in my house. I apologize, but there's nothing wrong with that. So, George, tell us a little bit, man. Tell us a little bit about what you do at LIRetro. Tell us, what interests you, all that stuff.
Yeah, so what I do at LIRetro, just as a quick background on me with the Long Island Gaming Expo, I've actually been a volunteer since year one. So I've been way, way far back. And I actually served as volunteer coordinator for, I want to say 5 years or so. And then I decided to make a shift to make a change. And I became part of the free play team and serving as a free play coordinator now. So what I do at the expo itself, I have a specialized driving and racing area. And it covers a lot of different things. It's not one specific genre of racing or one specific genre of driving. Just like have a feel. It could be arcade, sim, as realistic or as unrealistic as fantasy as possible. So everything in between. And it's something that I enjoyed because ever since I was a kid, I've always enjoyed racing and driving games.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously you do a terrific job with that. And I love that about racing, right? There's a few genres of game that have all of these different styles, right?
Right.
So racing, you have arcade racing, right? You have, whether it's classic arcade racing, classic Sega stuff, or even more modern arcade racing with something like a Burnout, right? And then you have these incredibly intense simulation games like your Forza Motorsports or your Gran Turismos, right? Or you've got your probably the most fun for me, your kind of couch multiplayer, in your face, Mario Kart and kind of kart racers, as well. So it does cover quite a big umbrella. And I always love that you have some sort of fun spin that you put on things with the racing game section every year. Tell us a little bit of what made 2022 special with what you did, down to the checker flag tablecloths that you had.
Thank you for mentioning that. Just decoration is something as appealing. So you want people to actually go to just to any expo, and you want to feel like they're in a whole nother world. So with the checkered flag, it's something that's very, very inviting to people. And then he even had a banner that was welcome race fans, to really kind of match it together. Because I've been to a couple NASCAR races and sports car races myself, and that's something you can see, or people have their own driver or own car manufacturer that they support. So just want to get that feel and that flavor. This year I have a couple little things of special that I'm going to do. Not going to discuss it here, Okay.
Oh, really? We're not going to give a little sneak peek? I'm going to try to get it out of you. A little bit. Got to give people a little bit of taste, a little taste of what you're working on, just so they get excited. But I totally understand wanting to keep it under wraps because you want to surprise people when they show up.
Yeah.
So with your history, obviously, with racing games, do you have a favorite? All the way back, do you have a favorite series?
All right, this is gonna be all over the place because again, as we talked about before, racing games, there's just so many different genres of it, subgenres too. But I'm gonna start the one that's most connected to me is Gran Turismo. That's something I've played ever since it came out, and I have all the series. I even actually have 7, and even though there has been some issues with it, I do enjoy it. It's not quite the same as in the past. Because my personal favorite in the series is Gran Turismo 4. That's right there. Just they hit everything to the mark with that game. But then that's just console sim. For like PC sim, my favorite's NASCAR Racing 2003 season, which was made by Papyrus and Sierra, and that really like because it's been kept alive for so long, just with all the different mods, even to like the current NASCAR season. So that's almost 20, 21 years now.
Wow,
So
that's crazy. They really keep up with it that much, huh?
they really keep up with it. And then one of the games for this year that I'm featuring in terms of like the realistic sim is Grand Prix Legends, which also came from Papyrus and Sierra, and that still has an active community. And that game came out in 1998,
Oh, wow.
so they're still making cars and tracks. So
So it's like the
pretty cool.
StarCraft of racing games, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. But arcade racing, favorite kart racer is actually Crash Team Racing, the original
C-
PlayStation.
CTR is great. Love it.
As like a sit down arcade, I would say Daytona USA or actually like Super GT Scud Racing are like my favorite Segas.
Yeah, I Sega did such a great job with the racing games. I think all of us have played Daytona USA
Mm-hmm.
a million times, and it's great walking into an arcade that has like, I don't know, like
Six
six
to eight,
cabinets,
6 to 8, yeah.
six or eight cabinets all linked up together and playing it. And it's not a new game; it's an old game, right? But it's just there's something just so much fun about it, and whether it's the music or it's the kind of in your face atmosphere of racing in general, I think that really brings that home. Have you ever been able to do something like that with like something like Daytona at the expo?
So last year was the first year we started to do like a dedicated like racing driving section.
Hmm.
We did have Daytona USA 2001 on display with the Dreamcast,
Yeah.
uh, and there is no possibility for a system like that I'm aware of. I wish I could get it out more, but maybe something in the future. Maybe we can get it at least maybe 4 players. It's one of those ideas you kind of keep on churning. So
Yeah, I totally get it. In today's day and age, I feel like the folks out there who modify and they take old consoles and kind of breathe new life into them by these add-ons, and whether it's 3D printing stuff and coming up with, new guts and whatnot, I would assume that in some way, shape, or form, you might be able to do something like that. So we got to keep our ears to the ground, because I think that that's a really important part of retro gaming and classic gaming now, is kind of like figuring out with modern technology how to modernize the retro experience. And I think the Dreamcast is such a great place to play, especially an arcade game,
I
and I
I
think
agree.
that it's so good. So now when you do so Dreamcast doesn't have System Link at all, not with the.
There's like a few games that actually do have it.
Mhm.
I know that it's mostly based in like the Japanese versions of games. Like I think it was Aero Dancing F was one of them. Ferrari F355 Challenge is another, and I believe there's a couple other more because like with System Link for the Dreamcast. But I don't think there's anything more of that. I could be wrong. You never
That's a
know.
shame. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know, and you never know. You never know. There's always weird stuff out there that they did, kind of like how we've linked together. What have we linked? What have you linked together in the past that wasn't necessarily just a racing game?
We have linked. I mean, Twisted Metal is just like one perfect example. Halo's
Hmm.
another. Then we've also done. Let's try to think because there's just so many out there. You can do. I believe SOCOM. I believe
Yeah,
also has it.
yeah.
So yeah, there it's runs the gambit. And then like even with the PS2 as an example, they had the network adapters on the back, and
Hmm.
you could system link through that. But for the fat PS2s, they had the iLink in the front, so that was like a
Okay.
specific cable. So I think Armored Core, I think supported by the iLink or System Link as well. So
Oh, that's great. That's great. And those all end up in the free play section,
mhm.
because I think what the expo draws in, right? It draws in people who are super fans, right? People who have been in the medium for our whole lives, right? And we go to the expo to see stuff that's different. We go to the expo to see what kind of new wacky stuff that we want to try. Whether it's the system link stuff, or system linking Halo, system linking SOCOM, system linking a Twisted Metal. Like that's amazing. And those are for people who are a little bit more invested, into the medium and stuff like that. Now, granted, everyone can have fun with any of that stuff, even if they don't really know what's going on with it, like the inner workings of it. That's the whole point. Our expo is very inviting to everyone. There are folks that want to come and just play Sonic 2 and Super Mario Brothers 3, and
that's it. That's their
Yeah,
expo. You
that's
know.
it. That's their expo for them. And then there are folks that are like, "Oh man, what crazy stuff is George cooking up in the racing area, you know, or what's going on in free play? What weirdo things are happening?" And that's beautiful, right? That's a beautiful thing. So for free play, give us a rundown. You know, like what you're doing, what you've done in the past, and how you're looking to kind of like improve free play further.
So I think something that we've done in the past, like what we're doing now, we're trying to have more specialized sections. Like in the past, definitely like we do have a ring of history, which is up on the second floor, has been in the past. But now really getting to like, we have a fighting game section, racing, driving game section, and puzzle section. I think more representation is always a good thing
Yeah,
because I mean, sports is another genre that gets talked about a lot. Uh, because even though like there are, I mean, it's kind of a running thing of like every single year there is a release, there are certain differences with games with releases, and there are certain games based on like let's just say NFL 2K5 is seen as probably like one of the great football games
yeah,
that's to be ever made. But
yeah,
then some people say Tecmo Super Bowl that was on the NES kind of thing. So, and then even like the NHL series as well, and basketball games like NBA Jam, NBA Street, and then even some of like the college hoops games that came out or March Madness. So there's a lot of differences that are in there, and then even some of the sports, like snowboarding, BMX bike, skateboarding, like some that more of the stream sports. It's those like Tony Hawk Pro Skater is a perfect example. I
yeah,
know so many
yeah.
kids and so many like us, like we played that. Maybe not necessarily into skateboarding now or then, but it just like it was such a cool game to play and it got it involved.
You know, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 through 3 were like so incredibly influential and for me as it's funny, I never skateboarded in my life. Didn't skateboard then, I don't skateboard now, but like I'm a musician and I'm a music guy, and I had already kind of listened to some music that was similar like what you would hear in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, but like the soundtracks to those games were like instrumental in like the music I was looking to perform later in
Mm-hmm.
life. And it's like, all the time people, I with my band, cheap plug here, Bad Mary, with my band, if whenever we do like an interview, right, and people are like, so what are the most influential albums to you? And it's like, I'll give them like a bunch of albums, and then I'll sit there and go like, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 through 3 were probably among the most influential, because it's like, I that first game came out in what, 1999. I was
Sounds about right.
13, right? I was 13 years old. So it's like 13, 14, 15 years old. This is the music I'm just getting inundated with. And, it's a huge thing. And I think it's sports in general, you know, gaming communities have a weird time with sports, right? Especially sports games. It's like they're very restrictive of allowing that to be in the conversation. But like, how important has the progression of a series like Madden or the 2K games been
Mhm.
to video gaming on the whole? Right? I mean, granted, yeah, they're not the same audience as the folks that are going to go sit down and play Final Fantasy or Mario Brothers or Halo or something like that. But I think actually they do cross over way more than we think and we like
Mhm.
to admit. And I think it's important. I think, like you said, NFL 2K5, that's the one with Terrell Owens on the cover, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was, yeah. So I remember that was huge. And the 2K games, I remember when they came out in the Dreamcast. I'm a Dreamcast guy. I'm pretty sure you are. Are you a Dreamcast guy?
Yeah, I have a Dreamcast. I own it. I wouldn't
Yeah.
say like I owned it when I was a kid, but
Okay.
just like I've had a grown appreciation over the years for it.
Yeah,
So.
Dreamcast is just this kind of incredible, like, the history here of it. Like, Sega has always been an arcade company kind of first
Mhm.
before they were a console company. They got into the console business to try to compete for a while. They ended up not being able to compete because Sony PlayStation ate their lunch. And then they continue to kind of still do arcades. And the Dreamcast is kind of like the perfect arcade system. I think it's like the perfect manifestation of what they were doing in the arcades on a home console. But when they released the Dreamcast in '99, it comes out with NFL 2K, which was the first time anyone really challenged, I think, Madden seriously.
Mhm.
And I remember 2K5 was like, it was ESPN, right? ESPN had the license on there, right?
I believe so. I
All
believe
right.
like some of them did.
Yeah.
I know that I don't know about like NFL Game Day or those other series
Yeah.
that came out
Yeah.
like 989, but yeah, it was like to see that of like the graphical fidelity and
Yeah.
just like the presentation alone. And I think that's what gets brought up with a lot of these sports games is that the presentation of modern sports games is different, or even the features is different from like even the older sports games. and
Yeah.
that's why people really go back to it fondly. And then with ESPN 2K, NFL 2K5 in particular, there was an issue that really like challenged Madden, not just because of the presentation, but also because the price point was originally $20, and that was a whole debate of like, really, so Madden is like 39.99, and then you're getting ESPN NFL 2K5 for $20. It's like there was really that kind of like thing what Sega did, which was very, very smart from a business perspective
Oh
to really
yeah.
get people in the door.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're completely correct on that. And it kind of beat man at the game to the point where EA had to be their only response was to buy exclusive rights to the NFL. Like, I mean, that is some corporate level like insanity, but I guess they were getting beat a little bit. And you know what? They were cranking out better games. I
Mm-hmm.
remember at that point in time, it was like, no, 2K5 was the better game than Madden that year, and EA got shown up. So the only natural response is to ensure that nobody else can make football games, and it's kind of upsetting because I would love to have seen kind of the progression of how NFL 2K would have went. And it's one of those things too where it's like you're saying, like you said earlier, it's like sports games were so important for progressing the technology, right? The
Mm-hmm.
graphics, and how I remember year after year it was like, this looks like I'm watching TV and playing a sports game. So that was incredible. I think, yeah, more sports games, but like there's also the arcade aspect of sports games, right? You brought up NBA
Correct.
Jam. What a terrific time, right? NFL Blitz. Don't
Mm-hmm.
tell me right now that like if we set up an N64 with, 4 controllers and NFL Blitz, like people wouldn't have an absolute blast with that, correct?
Correct. And I mean, another game I mentioned too, because NBA Jam, like, first off, when I was younger, I had College Slam. So it's like the exact clone of like
Yeah,
NBA
yeah, yeah,
Jam.
yeah.
So like that was more connection for me. But one of my favorite, if not my favorite NBA game is NBA Street Volume 2.
Oh, so good. So
And that
good.
was so good. Just like that, the feeling of it, the atmosphere, the moves, like everything, it felt so good. It felt so right. And I mean,
Hmm.
that same thing. You just put up like maybe like two people playing controllers, and boom, they can go to town for hours and just won't even care. So it'd be great. It'd be great to have like that representation.
I think so. I think it's important. And you can even, if you want to get into NBA Hang Time, if you want to get into
Hmm.
all that stuff too. But no, NBA Street was so much fun. I played so much of that. It's a different vibe. Arcade sports are so good. And I just, Street 2 was the one that was like, it was like funkier, right? It had like a funkier art style. And
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm picturing the cover
Like
art in my head
the
right now.
aesthetic. It was
Yeah.
like in the '70s kind of theming a bit.
Yeah.
That was kind of the vibe they were getting. Even like that nice '90s like hip hop, like in the
Yeah.
NYC, in the city, in the
Yeah.
streets.
And yeah, with the graffiti and all that stuff, it's really, really great stuff. They were doing really cool stuff with those games. What about a, and now this might be crazy, but what about a Mario sports section?
We'll have to see. We'll have to see. Nothing's off the table.
Hey, and you know what's always great with fun too, when we're talking about racing, right? We're talking about sports. We're talking how there's like simulations, and there's hardcore racing games, and there's arcade stuff, and there's kart racers. It's like it always reminds me of wrestling, right?
Hmm.
How wrestling games also have that, where you have like an arcade wrestling game like WWE Legends. Is that game? WWE All Stars, WWE All Stars. But then you have stuff that's like more serious, like playing like No Mercy or something like that.
Right.
Do you have like a wrestling section? Is that something you guys are looking into?
So we don't usually have like a wrestling section like specific, but when
Yeah.
we do WWE, sorry, I know it goes
Yeah, I
E to
know.
F, and it always
It
changes.
it hurt. Every time I hear the phrase WWF come out of my mouth, I know that immediately someone in the room is going to correct me.
Yeah.
So it's
Like,
like
oh wait, hold on a minute, time out. But No Mercy we usually put in with the fighting games.
oh,
That's what we usually do.
okay,
So it is
yeah. I
wrestling.
mean, you gotta
Yeah.
like those games. I think the developer is working with AEW now to do something,
Mm.
make something like that. But that's great. I would love to see some more wrestling.
Yeah.
So all right, what
Another
was that?
couple of genres real quick. My wife want to bring up because I just kind of mentioned it. Like we
Yeah,
do
go for
usually
it.
do like Gun Alley. We are
Oh
having a new
yeah.
RPG section this year. So that's
Okay.
going to be good. So
Let's
it's going to
talk
be
a little
good.
bit about that. I get Light Gun Alley. I think that's awesome. I think Light
Mhm.
Guns. What kind of stuff can we see in Light Gun Alley?
We've had like Time Crisis before in the
Yeah.
past, like Virtual Cop. We've had those games as well, and like some of the classics, like Duck Hunt.
Yeah.
We've
Yeah. Yeah.
had in
Yeah.
the past. So something more with that. And we're always looking to expand. Like House of the Dead is always a popular series. That we've had in
Yes.
the past. Even
Yes.
Typing of the Dead, but that's a whole nother.
Yeah. Our group of managers are a little bit. It's definitely a great collection of like total screwballs as
Hmm.
people. So any weird, stupid stuff that we can get out there, like Typing of the Dead, I always appreciate that. If we could throw that out there, that's just a lot of fun. Um, RPGs, interesting. So, what are you thinking about that? How are we going to do that?
So that's being run by Zach Rotz,
Oh,
who's
yeah,
one of our
Zach's the
other.
man. He's
Zach
awesome.
is the
Love
man.
Zach.
And I know he's right now formulating like what he actually wants to put out for the section. So I don't have like any specific details,
Hmm.
but I think that's something that, as we talked about before, of like Sonic 2 or like
Yeah.
Super Mario Brothers 3, are just sitting down and going through a whole playthrough session. There are people who want to go through a Final Fantasy or Chrono
Hmm.
Trigger or Secret of Mana or
Yeah.
like any other RPG. So it's something that's being worked on, but I think it's good to have that there as well.
I think it represents a very important part of the fan base and the fandom. And I think you could do some really cool stuff. Like you just said, Secret of Mana, right?
Hmm.
You can do that multiplayer. You know,
Hmm.
all of the Tales games, for what I understand, especially as they get later, you can play multiplayer. So you can set up a 360 with Tales of Vesperia and have two or three or four controllers, and that's fun, right? That's a good thing to do. It brings people together, and it's a genre where when you think about free play, that doesn't seem like it would get much representation because when you think of free play, right?
Hmm.
Now, I could be wrong, but when I think of free play and we have a bunch of consoles set up, it's not like we have a game bank, It's not like we can go up to a desk and get a game and bring it to the console and play it. Like we have designated consoles with games, and that's perfect. I love how that works. Um, you don't really think of RPGs because they're long, right? And they require a lot of attention and a lot of time. But how funny would it be if, like, over the course of a weekend, like people make their way through a significant portion of Final Fantasy VII on the same save file, right?
Hmm.
Like it's like someone could just sit down and pick up where the last person left off. It would be like going to Blockbuster in the 90s and renting Chrono Trigger and popping in your Super Nintendo and like picking up off of someone's save file. That was a little further on. What brought you guys to want to include RPGs? Just
Well, something like I'm going to just bring myself like a racing and driving as an example, and
mhm,
kind of
mhm.
like Zach is
Sure.
definitely someone who will speak more. A lot of, and this from the expo, we're all very passionate, and we all very like have different, likes and also different like passions. So for me, it is driving and racing. For Zach, it is RPGs.
Hmm.
So I think for us, like because we want to bring it out, like our passion, so what we would think people would enjoy, it's kind of a part and extension of ourselves.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like how very passionate about we are. So for Zach, he's very, very passionate. He's a big, big Final Fantasy fan.
Hmm.
Like I know like within his house he does have a separate Final Fantasy tribute area.
Oh, well,
So it's
that's
really,
cool.
really nice.
Yeah, I believe
So
he's got a VVT tattoo, right,
yeah,
on his
he does.
arm. Yeah,
Yeah.
good man.
So for me, I'm just happy that Zach is able to express that,
Yeah,
through
yeah.
everybody else in the expo. So
And you know
that's
what?
how it came about.
If he feels that passionately about it, there's going to be a bunch of people who are.
Yeah.
And get those cosplayers playing those games because they're going to show up in their Final Fantasy cosplay, and I think that's a really beautiful thing to have. So, we talked about your experience with the expo. I mean, you've been with it since essentially the beginning, the very
Hmm.
beginning.
Hmm.
What's it like to have seen the growth over the years? Like, I've been with the expo for a few years. I think I've been with the expo for like 4 or 5 years now, and I love it. So thank you all for having me.
Yay. We're happy to
Um,
have you too, Mike.
yeah, yeah, it's a great group of people. Really, really, just fantastic people who work this thing and run this thing. And I've been with the expo since after it had already moved to the cradle of aviation, and even in just the last few years, obviously COVID throws a wrench in the works everywhere. But even
Hmm.
over the last few years, the growth that I've seen has been like almost like unfathomable. How much bigger and better and more interesting the whole expo has gotten. What's it like being with it from like day one and seeing where it is now in 2023.
So for me, and just how I found out about it, and this will give you a little bit of a clue. So like I saw a Facebook ad about Long On Retro Gaming Expo happening. Wanted to have people volunteer. It's like, all right, I'll sign up for that. So I did not know anybody like that was part of that's like Joel or like
Yeah,
Jesse,
yeah.
like other people that we all know. So I didn't know anybody. So I'm coming into this like, oh, what's this going to be like? And this was in the Upsky Hotel, which is in Hauppauge, and we just had 3 rooms. So that's how small that we was, and already there was a demand for it. So then the next year we started to grow. We took most of the hotel on the first floor, and then we realized, well, we need a change. We need
Yeah.
to. We just knew that we're outgrowing, and it just popular. Like there was a need that maybe none of us had known was actually there, but there was like a need and a want to have a Long Island retro gaming expo.
Hmm.
And it just to see how it's grown throughout the years from like the guests, from the panels, and even like our knowledge and skill set. Like there's a lot of things that I've learned along the way that I didn't think that I would have learned like 5 years ago. I mean, especially like with the console kind of modding thing of what could be done. Like George Portugal is somebody who we talk about, quite a bit within our organization, who's our chief preservationist, and just the knowledge that he transfers over to everybody and just his mindset, it's unbelievable. So then when you start to kind of see like what's out there, then you're just like, your Wii can get HDMI. Oh, like your Dreamcast can too, and then just other kind of things. So it really like you've grown through it, like myself personally, and just to see what we've learned throughout the way, and just now we're getting into like what else can we fill in the space.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's really tremendous, and it's very humbling too to be a part of something from the ground up to like this point now.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. It's incredible to hear that, especially since you answered a Facebook ad essentially. I
Yeah.
think that's amazing. That's literally not knowing anyone to being one of the integral members of this group who runs this thing, right? I think that's really special. I think this means a lot to a lot of folks out there. I think retro and classic gaming in general, is kind of, while it's obviously part of the greater video game sphere, I think
Hmm.
it's a very important piece of history. It's a very important piece of entertainment. I think it's a very important community because this community has its back. We have our backs. We want to bring new people into the the hobby, and we want people to understand why we like these things that are old, or new things that feel like they're old, or all that stuff, because those of us who grew up video gaming, it's amazing to have a place to go and a community to kind of just hang with, to get more into this stuff. And like you said, learning, all the learning that we do. We I think we've brought up George Portugal on every one of these podcasts because dude's a wizard. He's a wizard who doesn't wear a wizard hat, but he is absolutely a wizard with the stuff that he does. You talked about Wii HDMI. I actually have a Wii ready to be HDMI modded. I got all the guts and all the gear, and I just have to like touch base with George, and he's just so gracious and so awesome and just amazing at what he does. And check out his videos on on the Long Island Retro Gaming YouTube page, please. His Fix It Fridays and all those things that he does. But also be sure to check out One Up Restorations, which is his company where he does all this modding and stuff. It's terrific. It's incredible, incredible stuff. But all that stuff, as we grow, George, I've seen what you guys have done with free play has
Hmm.
grown like immensely. So much new and interesting stuff every year. Like when you're working the expo, like when we're working the expo, we get very little time to go and see the other sections.
Hmm.
But I pretty much walk into free play and I'm overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that not only that you manage, but like the ideas. So like how did these ideas come up? Like where are you getting this stuff from? Where is this mad science coming from?
It's really like you just kind of think, and I'll give you like one of the things that we're doing this year, just to
Oh,
like a little
a little taste, a little breadcrumb trail.
a little taste, a little breadcrumb trail. So back, and this is just like a random thing. I really am focused, like my specialty is more like in driving race car games, right? That's just like what it is. Just because that's what I've grown up with, and this is my interest because I'm also a fan of auto racing in real life. But the
So
one,
just not to cut you off. I'm sorry. Just to better explain it so people have a
Sure.
better idea what you're talking about. You're talking about sitting down in a chair with the steering wheel and pedals and all that stuff.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's, and I have my own like wheel, like I have a Thrustmaster T300 pedal set and steering wheel. So I have a driving sim rig in my house, and I made it out of PVC pipe. So that's my thing, you know?
That's awesome. But that's the type of stuff I'm talking about, man. It's
Yeah.
kind of like that. Yeah, we're gonna make this work. We're gonna figure out. So
So
give us
now,
that taste.
so with that taste, motorcycle racing is something which is very important. And one of the things I recently have been looking through the internet, I was like, let me try and bring something that's interesting. So what we're attempting to doing, because I haven't seen it done, we recently acquired a Yamaha MS1 motorcycle controller that was released for the PlayStation 2. So what you can do with it, and it came with an adapter for Xbox and GameCube. Uh, I know, I see your face. But the Brook, you can actually use a Brook converter and use it as a PS3, PS4 controller. So they came out with a release of Super Hang On for the PS3. So we're gonna try. We're gonna try. I haven't seen it online or attempted.
All
So it's
right.
like the Mad Scientist stuff to actually use the handlebars and everything with Super Hang On.
I'm gonna tell you guys this right now. I'm not talking directly to George right now. I'm talking directly to our audience. George says that they're going to quote unquote try. For those of you who don't understand how this group works, try means it gets done, and it
Yes.
gets done very well because there are a bunch of lunatics, and I say that with all of the love and all of the appreciation and all of the respect. There's a bunch of lunatics that work in this group that will figure out how to make this insane stuff work. George, it's so cool. Sadly, this is an audio medium, so y'all couldn't see my face, which was completely, my mouth was completely open. The second he was just like, there is a Yamaha motorcycle control, I knew where he was going. I know what Six Savage stuff you were planning.
Hmm.
That's awesome. Super Hang On, that'd be so cool, dude. That's so cool. What, were you just like, you know what, we need to do this? Just like, is that it? Is that just the spark?
It's a spark. It's a thought of, listen, there's, like we talked about before with the different genres and everything. It's what is not represented. So motorcycle racing is like, driving sim can be a niche thing, but motorcycle sim can be even more niche. And even though we're
Yeah,
talking about Super Hang On, which is an arcade game, it's still niche.
yeah,
So I was looking online, and there's two different controllers, which is a Yamaha MS1, like I mentioned, or then Thrustmaster made the Freestyler bike controller. And with that one, you can turn it like a bike, or it has a tilting mechanism as well.
that's what I was going to ask.
So yeah, this one does not have the tilt mechanism, but the problem with the Thrustmaster is, for those who don't know, Thrustmaster is actually a French company, so
Oh,
they're more readily available in Europe, and it's very
okay,
very hard to find one, because
okay,
usually, like, once it comes up online, like Bakari or eBay, it
yeah,
gets snatched up.
got it.
So the Yamaha was the one I was best able to find, and let me take a look, and the Brook converter came up, and there's a couple other games like MotoGP,
Hmm.
Ride 4, 3 I've seen, and also Isle Man. They worked well with the Brook converter with the Yamaha MS1 controller. I was like, all right, let's give it a shot. Let's do Super Hang On.
That's incredible. And for those of you out there listening, it's only a year or so before they mount that to like an actual fake bike, because
You never know.
yeah, it's an escalation game, folks. Eventually, there's going to be, well, there is a company out of this place that makes these kind of mini bikes. Just wait, just you wait. And that's so cool, man. I love that, and thank you for giving the audience a little taste, because they gotta know all the cool, different, weird stuff that's coming out, that we're gonna have at the expo in 2023. So while we're on that topic, what excites you about 2023? What excites you about retro and classic gaming at this point in time, and about the expo in general?
I think with the expo, because we had just come back from COVID,
Yeah.
there's a lot of like anticipation of like, all right, not saying we don't work well together, but it's like, all right, we haven't worked like a big event in a while, and it just seemed like once we got there on the Friday and even throughout the week, it just, we're all back on cylinders again, and we all just got along very well. So
Hmm.
that was like one thing. So now it's like, all right, COVID, it's over, for the most part. Let's another year. So now,
Yeah.
how do we do the scheduling and the planning and stuff? So that's something for the expo, like, I'm happy about, just because now we're going to be back into a rhythm of things
Hmm.
again. And then we've been doing like 80s nights, and then Cradle Con's actually coming up. in May. So that's also something that's very exciting. So we have
Yeah.
events to prep and to prime what we do. Um, and then just like in gaming in general, something that I've been more, I mean, even fairly recently, I don't know if you ever heard of it, but the MSU1 audio chips. Have you heard of
No,
that
no, no,
before?
no. What's that?
So MSU1, it's been out for a while, but been recently picked up. So MSU1 was created by Bayou, and he was the person who developed the Beast Nest emulator.
Okay.
So it's an emulator chip where you can actually put soundtrack CD quality audio into certain games.
Oh
So
wow.
I've been playing Mega Man X and I found like a rock kind of cover and you're able to like throw that in there. So
That's
it sounds pretty
cool.
cool. Yeah. So
That's
that's what I've been
cool.
into.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. I love Mega Man X.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna
It's
let you know right there.
one of my favorites too. One of my
it's
favorites.
it's a top 3 game for me, man. That's cool. That's the only game I can kind of like come close to speed running. Um,
Right
I
on.
mean, I'm not good enough, but I could probably beat it in under an hour.
Nice.
But that's so cool. That's so cool. But like, man, there's every time I talk to someone else in the team, there's some new wild advancement on some retro thing. And because everyone is specialized and has all these special interests, it's really great to see what you guys can do. So looking forward to 2023, we could see some motorcycle stuff. We're going to see more racing. We're going to see more free play, more intense free play, RPGs. We covered a lot. We covered a lot of
Mhm.
stuff, and I think that there's just such great things happening. There's great people involved and great things happening in the future. So, are we going to have a Crash Team Racing set up?
Yep. It's going to be there. It's going to be there. No worries. It's going to be, it was already on the plans.
Oh,
We didn't
good.
talk before. It's already on the plan.
All
So
right, good.
multi tap and everything.
Oh,
So
with the multi tap, with four, you can get up to 4 players with the multi tap.
yep.
Oh, that's it, man. That's some
Bring me through.
CTR is good. It kind of gave Card a run for its money.
It did. It
It
did.
did.
Just because the when I was playing Mario Kart 64 at the time, probably like with
Yeah.
you, like
Yeah. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
mechanics were so different from the drifting. But this one, it's like it was more technical. So
Yeah.
that's what I really liked about CTR. And I've been a Sony guy ever since day one. So it's like
Okay.
when I saw Crash, it's like, yeah, he's my guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally get it. I think. Do you have a Crash behind you somewhere?
So I do have a Crash behind me.
All
Yeah.
right. He's got a Crash. He's got a Crash and a Parappa the Rappa. For those of you who aren't peering into George's room right now. Yeah. No, I think CTR was great. I'm a Diddy Kong Racing fan, but I
Oh
try not
yes.
to tell too many people that because they want to get mad at me for enjoying some Diddy Kong racing.
Why
But
did
CTR
Diddy
was
bash you for that? Why?
because man, you can't go up against the cart. I've seen what they do to people. I'm kidding. It's
God.
a joke. I'm joking.
Um,
But that's awesome, man. Some CTR for player. Lots of great stuff going on at Free Play, and just a lot of great things. George, I want to thank you for taking some time to talk with us today. Give the folks out there, a little rundown of what they should do to be more involved with the community and how they can, contact you or reach out to you or communicate with you about all these things you like so much.
So go on to LIRetro.com. That's a website for the expo. There are different tabs that are on the top where you can actually, if you want to become involved, like volunteers like us,
Hmm.
you go to the Get Involved section. There will be the volunteer form that is over there. And I've been here since year one, and I can't say enough of like the group of people that we're with. It really has become a family, and these a lot of these people are like my true friends. So just want to mention it with that. And I mean, there's a lot of different, if you go on the LIRetro.com website, you can also follow us on many different social media outlets. And I mean, it just, again, besides like the expo itself, we do other support events throughout the year. So just follow the socials and, just come and meet us and hang out. We love to talk and love to chill, talk about
Yeah,
games.
that's it. That's it. We want to hang out with you guys. We want to hang out with you folks out there on the internet. So please come to the expo. The expo is August 11th through the 13th of 2023. It is the best weekend of the year,
Yes.
hands down. Hands
Yes.
down. For my money, best weekend of the year. It is a fun time with great and amazing people, and I think you don't even need to be a hardcore gamer to come. It's for everyone. It is a good event. Come have fun for the weekend. Get to meet George. Get to hop into one of his crazy racing rigs and maybe play some games that you haven't played in a long time. So, George, thank you so much for being here. I greatly appreciate it. It means so much to us here on the podcast side of things to know what you're working on and all of that passion. So, dude, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Mike, for having me, and thank you again for giving me the platform to talk about like racing, driving, and also the Long Island Retro Gaming Expo.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, dude. We'll have you back. We're gonna have to talk post expo to see how all this stuff went. So,
Oh boy.
um, yeah,
Oh
no,
boy.
I'm excited. I'm excited. You should be excited. It's gonna be
Oh
fun.
yes.
But all right, all. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Long Island Retro Gaming Podcast. Like I said earlier, you can find us at the Cradle of Aviation on August 11th through the 13th, 2023. And in the meantime, be sure to follow us on YouTube and Twitter and Instagram. Just search out LIRetro or Long Island Retro Gaming, wherever search engine you use, or you could go to longislandretrogaming.com to get your tickets. Get them now. They're available. Get your passes. Don't want to miss out. You do not want to miss out on this event. It's honestly my favorite gaming convention ever. And I'm not just saying that because I work there. And I'm not just saying that because the people we work with are incredible. It's just a good time. George, you said it the best. It feels like a family. And when you walk into the convention, even if you're, or the expo rather, you're not just there as kind of like a patron or a guest. Even as a guest, it feels like you're a member of the family. So come and play video games with us. That's what we want you to do. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Long Island Retro Gaming Podcast, where we'll be talking more about this. And once again, a big thank you to our free play coordinator, George Smith, and all around amazing dude and one heck of a race car driver.
No comment. No comment.
All right. We'll see you next time, everyone. Have a good one.